I've already made a video asking you guys what the worst albums of this decade are, and while some of you guys had some valid, great answers, the rest of you, terrible takes. So since we're already more than halfway through the 2020s, I decided to use this opportunity to go over what I think are some of the worst albums of this decade so far. When it comes to this topic, I always see the same albums being mentioned over and over and over again. So I decided to put together a list of albums that I don't often see getting brought up in these sorts of discussions to keep the video more interesting. Bad Ass Fucking Kid by Nettspend. This record is the embodiment of everything wrong with the current wave of rage music that has saturated the rap mainstream over the past few years. The music on here is completely nonsensical, mindless, mind-numbing, generic trap music that prioritizes loudness over everything else. You won't find a single good beat on this album, they're all incredibly basic. You won't find a single good flow or melody either, because he's just reusing the same generic flow you've already heard from other trap rappers again and again. He has such an uninteresting voice too. There's nothing about his vocal style that stands out or distinct at all. I hate using the word slop to criticize music, but if there's any album you could slap the label slop on, it's definitely this one. The aspects that make good trap music appealing are usually the beat and the flow. This album has absolutely none of that. I come away from this album not recalling a single flow that's worth remembering, or even a beat. This to me is like the total Xanarchy of this decade. Boring, stupid, annoyingly repetitive, mind-numbing, gross, generic. Nettspend does not have a unique, distinct sound at all. Mattox had more style than this. Skepta, Chip, and Young Ad's Insomnia. So this is the collab album between UK grime legend Skepta, Young Ads of D Block Europe fame, and grime MC Chip. What a link up. Skepta is clearly the main reason I wanted to give this album a listen in the first place, even though I came away from his previous record Ignorance is Bliss incredibly disappointed. I thought maybe he could redeem himself with this one. I initially predicted that Skepta was going to carry both Chip and Young Ads on pretty much every track here, since the gap in quality between Skepta and the other two is pretty vast in my opinion. I never really got into D Block Europe's music, they're incredibly bland to me, and I've never cared much for Chip either. But after finishing this album, it honestly feels like Skepta purposely lowered his own standards just to meet Chip and Ads at their level. The entire track list sounds like a collection of throwaway songs that should have been left in the vault. With Konnichiwa, you could tell that a lot of effort, time, and care had gone into the album. I just can't say the same for Insomnia. And Skepta is usually the type of MC to bring some humorous, entertaining, funny, witty UK banter into his lyrics, but his lyrics on this album are just so rushed and awful. Got my dream girl in my real life, in the dunya but I'm living nice. Bought a chain, didn't see the price. Diamonds on me, that's vanilla ice. Did KSI write this? There's not a single cut here that's even average, because they're all below average. And these guys do not know how to use autotune in a way that's actually appealing and effective. Young Ads in particular really reminds me of just how generic his style is. I never want to see these three collab again. This was such a substanceless and unnecessary release. David, Withered. Listen, even before all of the disgusting, inhumane stuff that has come to light about David, his music was still trash. I've always thought of David as one of the blandest artists in the pop mainstream. I mean, he even said himself that one of his biggest influences is Cigarettes After Sex. So you've got a generic generic artist taking influence from an already generic band that itself rips off other music. That's just adding another layer to the pile of unseasoned chicken. David has such an average singing voice, and the production choices on this album are so flavorless and generic that there's even an instrumental here that's reminiscent of the one on KSI Stick of It. The blandness of his voice is emphasized strongly on the track with Kali Uchis, where Kali's voice and David's voice are a complete night and day difference. Kali's voice is so heavenly, gorgeous and distinct, while David's voice is just fucking boring. And in the present day, even if I genuinely liked the music on this album, it would be incredibly difficult to separate the art from the artist. After everything that has unfolded surrounding the David murder case, the lyrics on this album feel deeply uncomfortable and have aged in a really creepy way. There's even an interlude that allegedly features Celeste's voice. So what was once just a substanceless bland album is now a substanceless bland album with deeply disturbing lyrics. Katy Perry 143. I don't think Walmart, H&M or any other shop in that lane needs to worry about finding the right radio-friendly playlist to blast bland and safe pop music through their speakers anymore, because they can just play this entire Katy Perry album from front to back instead. The music on this project sounds exactly like the kind of music that plays at my gym, the music that plays in my local Primark. You get the point. And if you're someone who's never heard a single second of this project and just looked at the tracklist, you might be confused by my comparison to H&M music, because the list of featured artists doesn't exactly scream bland retail stores pop. 21 Savage isn't H&M music, Jid is certainly not H&M music, Doechii maybe, but that's because Katy doesn't have the cleverness or creativity to incorporate artists into songs that actually complement those artists' respective sounds. 21 Savage's ruthless, cold-blooded, deadpan trap rap style has absolutely nothing to do with the friendly dance pop on this album, yet Katy throws him onto a song anyway, presumably in an attempt to gain back some of her lost relevancy. And this isn't even a new problem for Katy. She's been throwing musicians onto songs that have nothing to do with their respective sounds for years. Snoop Dogg on California Girls, Kanye West on E.T., Juicy J on Dark Horse, I believe. It's insane how out of touch she still is. On 143, Katy is incapable of creating a fresh, exciting tune or evolving her poorly aged sound in a way that could carve out her own lane in today's ever-changing pop landscape. Valedictorian by Ian. Is there anyone at your school who's made trap rap music before, or at least someone at the school you used to go to? Well, if there is, even though I've likely never heard their music before, I'd bet money that if you put their songs into a playlist alongside tracks from this Valedictorian album and played it all on shuffle without telling me which songs came from the album and which came from your former classmate, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I'd probably assume they were all made by the same artist. Throughout this record, Ian is ripping off Carti, Chief Keef, Lil Baby, Future. Any trap artist who blew up in the 2010s that you can think of is likely being directly ripped off on this album. Ian doesn't have his own distinctive voice or sound, so instead he just steals the sound from other rappers and calls it a day. And it's not only the voices and flows that he's stealing either, it's also the beats. The instrumentals here sounds like those type beats you'd find on YouTube, you know, like a Playboi Carti type beat or a Lil Uzi type beat. Ian has to be the least distinguishable rapper right now. He brings nothing to the table. At least with someone like Nav, as terrible as his music is, he has a recognizable sound. I can't say the same for Ian. And that's the list, my least favorite albums of the 2020s so far. I do have an ongoing series called The Worst Album Hunt, where I try my my best to listen to as many universally hated albums as possible in an attempt to find the worst album ever made. So if you want to see me talk trash about more albums in a more comedic way, go check out that playlist please. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.